Good morning. Welcome back to Sage and Stone Homestead. My name is Heather. So we are experiencing probably one of the last decent cold dips for this season. I think we woke up and it was 24 degrees when last week we had, I think it was almost 70 degrees for a high. Kind of crazy, but that's what our area does. We still have at least a couple months of hay feeding left. Quite a few people get sort of shocked when they hear that we have about 200 days of feeding hay. And that's because the grass really stops growing around October and it doesn't really start growing until May. So into April, we're still getting frost and we are still needing to feed hay. So it's a really long time. I've only got a little bit left of the big bales that we picked up last time. Levi's doing a hay run today. I've got to do some disbudding and some picking of the garden, and I'm going to bring you along for dinner. So it's going to be another good day. Hi, handsome. I just bought this. You know that? Watch out, baby. Good morning, Alara. You're so bitty. You're so bitty. Meanwhile, good morning, sir. Okay, come on. I was asked recently if I was going to be jacketing our baby goats for the cold. So they were born about a week ago and it was pretty warm. We were having nights in like the 40s, days in the upper 60s, and then we quickly dipped down to mid 20s, and then tonight's gonna be like 21. And the answer is no. I have little jackets that I have put on baby goats before, but it was for a much colder, much more dreary situation. And I believe the babies were a lot younger. I mean, these guys are only a week old. But at this point, they've got a lot of thrift and a lot of energy. They're absolutely completely dry. They're metabolizing all that milk that they're able to get to really easily. Sometimes it takes babies a couple days to really figure out how to nurse. But these guys are pros and they're able to keep warm just fine. I would consider it if we were getting into the teens and it was like maybe super wet or blowing snow or something, but they're fine. These two are actually the two that are going to need disbudding a little bit later. We have Turd and Jupiter. before we go out and deal with what we need to do in the barn today, I do want to start the crusty bread for this evening. So we have recently just gotten through the first part of our kidding season, and for that I did put away my sourdough starter just so I don't have to think about it. I fed it and put it in the refrigerator. So I did not have it pulled out in time to make my crusty bread with the sourdough starter, but I have a recipe that I really like to use. I've showed it before, but not like start to finish. So in the bowl I have 3 cups of bread flour, 2 teaspoons of salt, 2 teaspoons of yeast, and I'm going to do something that I have not done in the past. I'm going to turn this into an herbed bread loaf. I have all of these different herbs that I got from the store, and I'm just going to add 1 teaspoon of each. Tarragon, parsley, basil, dillweed, and oregano. And the next step is to put in 1.5 cups, give or take, of tap water. The recipe specified tap water. I imagine you could reheat filtered water without problem, but I think they just wanted to highlight that you could use like city water and it probably won't affect anything. That's not true of everything, so it's probably worth mentioning. So what I'm looking for is really a sticky and slouchy dough. And truthfully, this is a little bit too dry, so I am going to add a little bit more water. This is more what I'm looking for. You can see that it's pretty wet and it's not holding together. It doesn't matter. It doesn't need to hold together. Just going to use this rubber spatula to bring everything back together so that it can rise for 3 hours. All I do is stick it in the microwave, keep it out of the way. There we go. We'll shape this and bake it off later. So it's time to do one of my least favorite tasks of being a goat shepherdess, and that is disbudding. So we have this Reinhardt disbudding iron. This is actually the bigger one. They sell one with a pygmy tip. This is the model X30, and I think this is a 1/2 inch diameter in here. So I'm actually gonna plug it in so I can let it heat up while I kind of talk to you about why we do disbud. So to disbud or not to disbud is really anyone's preference when you have dairy goats or goats in general. A lot of people choose not to take the buds off of their babies, and we ultimately did decide to start disbudding on our farm because we were finding that in the community around us, many people want pets, but they don't want their pets to have horns. You can breed goats to not have horns. It's called polled, and I'll show you the difference between polled and horned in just a second. But you shouldn't really breed two naturally hornless goats together to get all naturally hornless goats, because there's actually some risk there of creating hermaphrodites, and that's not what we want. There's something about those two genes being close together. Sometimes it goes awry in a really weird way. So I do have quite a few polled does, and Havoc is one of my main bucks that I use, and he is polled. So we don't have to disbud super often, but there are 2 babies in our recent kid crop that need doing. The rabbits are scared of the dog. You can take goats to a vet. Some people will anesthetize the goats in order to disbud them. I don't find that that's super necessary. Anesthesia is actually kind of dangerous for dairy goats because they metabolize medicine so fast through their system. They actually need quite a high dose, and it is a little bit dangerous, and really they tolerate disbudding much better than something like castration, believe it or not. So we need to let our disbudding iron heat up. It gets incredibly hot. Super, super hot. I do have other more instructional videos on how to disbud. I'll link those at the end of this video. This is really just going to be me just showing one of the many tasks of the day. This baby, this is Ilara. Ilara is polled. She's naturally hornless. When you put 2 goats next to each other, one that's polled and one that's not, it's a little bit easier to see. But the polled goats usually have a more narrow, rounded head, and you can tell by the pattern of their hair. Also, if they're polled, you can see the direction of hair growth on the top of her head. She does not have any kind of pronounced swirl where a horn would be. It's kind of just like a straight line where she has the pattern of hair growth here. Can you see that? There's no swirl. And this little baby, this is Turd, and you may be able to tell the difference just in head shape. He's got just more of a squared off look to him, and Right here, that's where his horn bud is. The hair does do a little bit of a swirl pattern. Especially with little boys, you can really feel the difference too. Some polled goats do have what's called giraffe poll, where you can feel little mounds underneath, but they're not pointy and they don't get bigger. This little guy, his horn buds are getting bigger by the day and they're more triangular, kind of like a pyramid, I guess. And so he needs disbudding today. I don't love it, but it's going to increase his chances of being purchased either as a pet or a breeding animal. So we've got this box to help keep the babies still. This little box works well for tattooing ears when they're little. Stay. Oh, just testing the iron out to make sure it's good and hot. That's going to be extremely important because the hotter it is, the faster things cauterize and the faster any pain that they experience goes away. You essentially are just burning the nerves super fast, so any pain that they experience is very fleeting. Restraint is the worst part of it for them, I think. I've shaved off his little horn buds just so I can see them a little bit better. I do not always do that, but it also helps reduce any kind of smoking, like from the hair. It's really nice to disbud La Manchas because you don't have to deal with the ears. With Nigerians, you kind of have to watch that ear so you don't accidentally burn it. And ideally, speaking of burns, I would have gloves. I do have leather gloves. I just don't know where they went. I put my finger in their mouth just to help hold them still. Like, what happened? Huh? What happened? Sometimes I find that with little boys, it's necessary to do a second burn on each bud because their horn has a little bit, like I said, of pyramid shape. And sometimes the front point of the pyramid can get left behind through that disbudding iron, and if you don't get that out, it can create a horn scur, and horn scurs are worse than horns. They're this weak little bit of horn that tends to break and bleed and just cause lots of issues, so we try not to have scurs. Some people will put like an aluminum spray on afterwards. I just use this blue coat. Really, that iron is so hot that it cauterizes everything and kills any kind of bacteria, but just in case. You ready to go see Mom? Got one more. Little Jupiter here, he's a little bit younger and he may not need that figure 8. You fit better in this box too. Genetics play a role too in whether or not they have strong horn genetics, and if that, protrusion is prominent. I think he's okay. I know, it's the worst. Ready to go see Mama. So it's good and fermented. You can tell that the top is kind of flat and this is very fluffy. This is not like your average bread dough, but this is exactly what we want. Just gonna break it from the sides and put it down on this floured surface, and then we'll form it. This smells really good with all the herbs in it. This little tool is awesome for what I'm about to do. It's called a bench scraper. And all we're gonna do is fold this bread over on itself a few times just to kind of bring it together. Like this. nothing super precise. I'm just gonna put it seam side down at this point where all of those folds came together and just tuck it under, trying to create a nice little ball. And then I was sent these really cool silicone mats that are just for this purpose. Just gonna pick up my dough ball here, place it in the middle. And right now I have a Dutch oven inside the oven as it's preheating to 450. I do want the oven to be screaming hot so we can put this down in and the bread will steam as it cooks. So I knocked over this book while grabbing my harvest basket, but there's something in it that I want to show you. I've been meaning to show this to you. And it's nothing huge, but it's extremely special to me. This is my garden plan for my first garden here. The summer 2019 garden. I thought I was gonna grow radishes, baby carrots, cucumbers, bush beans, kale, summer squash, broccoli, green onions, spinach, lettuce, and snow peas in July. If you don't know very much about gardening, like, it's not gonna work where it's really hot. Most of those things they're not hot weather things. This is the one that I love the most. See this to-do list from July of 2019? The first thing, July 1st, plant the garden. Just do it. Because I was paranoid. I was paranoid that it wasn't gonna work out. And a lot of it didn't, but look where we are now. Truthfully, that's how I get even now. It's like, oh man, this is a lot. Can I really do it? Well, you definitely can't if you never start it, so just do it. It's good and cozy in here. I've got a little bit of condensation rain. Really what I'd like to do is take some of these Brussels sprouts out of the greenhouse. Maybe. I go a little bit back and forth on what I want to do. So you can harvest Brussels sprouts in one of several ways. The first way is essentially like a cut and come again, where you don't pull the whole plant out, you just twist off the individual sprouts. That's obviously going to leave the root system in the ground, and then there's the potential for the plant to get a little bit taller and grow more sprouts. Can you see these guys in here? Each leaf at the base of it will create a sprout. Some of these lower leaves I did just go ahead and trim back. I was reading that could give you some larger sprouts. These are not bad size. So I contemplated just cutting some of these off at the base and just, you know, not planting this space again until springtime. But because I have nothing immediately meeting this planting hole, I think I'll harvest in this way. And then maybe we'll get another harvest later if these get any bigger. There's our sprout harvest. I had originally envisioned each stalk getting about 2 feet tall and each stalk essentially representing a meal. That might be dependent on variety. I don't know if all varieties will get tall like that, but I think a lot of what we're dealing with here is soil related. So we got something. That's way better than nothing. That's it though, that's all of them.
That's it?
Yeah.
Bummer.
I'm just gonna go through these and pick off any of the outer leaves that look, you know, a little brown, maybe a little wilted. Maybe they have way too many bug holes that I don't feel like dealing with. And then we're going to slather them in bacon grease and roast them up and have them with dinner. All right, so my timer went off, but the bread is not done. So it steams in here with the lid on for 30 minutes, and then we take the lid off and put it back in for 12. So the main course for dinner tonight is this lobster bisque soup that we found at our local store. It just said Maine lobster bisque soup, and we grabbed all of it that we saw. I'm from Maine, so seafood like this is very nostalgic. The kids have never had it before, but I think they're gonna like it. They've liked seafood in the past. It's not broccoli.
Oh, Brussels sprouts.
Brussels sprouts, yeah.
It's like broccoli.
It's not broccoli. Bentley thought it was broccoli too.
Fart balls.
Fart balls, that's what Bentley used to call them.
Really?
Yes. It got him to eat them by calling them fart balls.
It did.
We probably haven't had Brussels sprouts since the last time I grew them, which was,
We wouldn't have.
it was spring 2021. I harvested them through the snow.
Mm-hmm.
Like water.
Remember that big old
Soup.
thick coat of ice they got?
And they were fine. The thing with homegrown Brussels sprouts too is they're very buttery. Sometimes almost the core of the Brussels sprout with the store-bought ones can be a little bit hard. These don't need nearly as much roasting time to be tender, for sure.
Asparagus is the exact same way.
Asparagus is the same way.
Homegrown versus store-bought.
I just ate all my Brussels sprouts.
Thank you.
I want more.
There are more, but we're gonna ration them because that's all we have for now. I left the plants in though. So here's our herbed bread. It came out exactly like it normally does, but smell that. I'm gonna leave a couple videos up here for you regarding disbudding. This disbudding video actually makes me cringe right now, but it's the first time that I ever disbudded a goat by myself. So I think it's a really good perspective to see. That's little baby Elpis in that video, and clearly she's fine. She doesn't have any horn scurs, so it did the job.